Lately, it feels like the world is just getting worse and worse. Everything you see online is just trying to sell you things. The world is slowly melting. Leaders of some of the most powerful nations are stomping on you and your back to keep their pockets growing. And throughout all of this, all of the unrest and the fear, you are still expected to get up and continue working like everything's normal. But this is not the only option. The magic that life used to have is still there. We just have to find it. I personally found it through rewatching Studio Ghibli movies. They're so comforting, it makes me jealous that I can't write anything that good. Ever since I watched Kiki's Delivery Service for the first time while babysitting, hunched over on a kid's bed bunk, trying not to step on Legos on the floor, I've been hooked. And now, a good 5 years after that, I found a new hyperfixation that surprisingly fits Studio Ghibli really well: ecofeminism. But that's a big word, and YouTube's new algorithm will actually unalive me if I start using words with more than 5 syllables this early into the video, so for now, let's just focus on Studio Ghibli. Over the decades, they've achieved cult classic status, gaining a dedicated band of fans because of the beautiful aesthetics, loyalty to true animation, and the peace that just feels impossible to find in everyday life nowadays. Simply put, they make everything magical, and not just with dragons, or powers, or prophecies, or live-action remakes of older movies because they've replaced the writing department with ChatGPT and Lin-Manuel Miranda cuffed to a desk, but the magic comes from everyday life, and also sometimes demons and talking wolves and whatever. But most of all, it's in everyday life. It's simple, it's boring, and it's very beautifully peaceful. And this beauty of Studio Ghibli is not just doing chores is aesthetic now, but instead draws from deeper philosophies that turn all of these movies into a sort of collective manifesto. There's a whole variety of them, from ecological-based feminism to even traditional Japanese Shinto beliefs. They all intersect and form the wonderful Studio Ghibli philosophy you love without even realizing it. Wait, ecological, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm kidding about the YouTube thing, I think. But I am really serious about the philosophy bits. The references within them are infinitely layered, to the point that even if you picked apart every little detail of these movies, it's impossible to come up with one definitive, quote, lesson to learn from them. Instead, you slowly start tracing back the ideologies of these movies to real-world movements. But don't just take my word for it. Okay, as a preface here, this video already took me multiple days to research and multiple days to outline my research, so I had to limit the movies to just 4. Princess Mononoke, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, Ponyo, and El Clasico, My Neighbor Totoro. If you finish this video, or if you're smarter than me, which is the more likely option here, honestly, since I've seen the age range of my viewers, and it kind of freaks me out, considering, But anyways, feel free to tell me what movie I should have included in the comments. I've recently only found out The Castle in the Sky was, a Studio Ghibli movie, like, this week, embarrassingly. I really want to watch it, but I'm also, I've seen so many this week. I've watched so many, and I've had to rewatch multiple times. Rewatch most of them multiple times it's a mess. But anyways, to start with, let's just go with Princess Mononoke. I actually watched this for the first time for this video, and oh my god, you guys have been holding out on me? How dare you? I've been a big fan of Studio Ghibli's style from the first time I was introduced to them, but Princess Mononoke feels like the peak of all of them when it comes to world building, especially. Across the movie, there are 2 main groups that are at odds with each other. There's the human Iron Town, and then there's the more spiritual forest, mostly populated by animal spirits and then, literal animals. What Irontown represents, though, is fairly obvious just from the name itself. It's the industrial, technological side of the film's conflict, with this newly bustling territory focusing on using iron to make weapons to hopefully make a name for themselves and turn into their very own empire one day. Except to do this, they kind of deforested an entire mountain and displaced the apes that originally lived there. The apes, depressingly, continue to try replanting the trees in their original home, but then the townspeople just continue to tear them down and attack any animal that gets too close, because we suck, just as humans. But yeah, you can probably already see where I'm going with this video. So yeah, like I mentioned, Irontown's main focus is on making those guns and bullets out of iron that are the very one and the same as the bullets that pollute the living beings with hatred and turn them into demons. Iron is the symbol of hate. Hate is the pollution. Yeah. This is pretty predictable so far, I think, as well. However, what sets Irontown, and Princess Mononoke by extension, apart is the fact that Irontown is actually dominated by the women. It's led by a woman, Lady Eboshi, whose character writing we will get into in a future video. And all of the female residents seem to have the upper hand. Instead of being brothel workers or wives, they work in the factories, and the value of this lifestyle that's decentered men is not lost on them. Many of them worship the ground Lady Eboshi walks on simply because they view her as this source of freedom from their previously miserable lives. However, this empowerment is pretty much just reversed gender roles, kind of. Women work in factories and then men fetch the food, and both groups are still breaking their backs over labor, so it's not even really freedom. It's just a less dangerous and soul-sucking version of still difficult labor. But anyways, and then there's also the added layer of ethics when you think about the fact that everyone in Irontown is still profiting from the displacement of the animals that used to live on that mountain. And then obviously there's the other side of the conflict with the animals. The animals and the forest spirits are way, way worse off than any of the humans are. They're mostly seen as an enemy, or a soon-to-be resource by Irontown, just things to slaughter until they become mindless cattle to farm later down the road for more money. Another interesting thing about Princess Mononoke's world building, though, is that animals aren't just a monolith. They have different territories and different animal groups within what I keep calling the forest, which is actually it's more complex than that, but just for simplicity's sake, I call it that, Anyways, the main ones that we see in the film are the wolves, the boars, and then the apes that the Irontown specifically displays. Lady Eboshi and Irontown might be literally attacking every group of animals in this movie, but the animals aren't exactly perfectly morally pure and united either. They have, not that they should be, but they can also be contaminated with iron and hatred and turn into demons from it too, and it's a really painful process and can contaminate others, like the main character Ashitaka, and only ends in death. Irontown is actually causing most of the pollution that the animals go through. In fact, there's this boar that dies at the beginning of the movie. He's been turned into a demon by one of those iron bullets that Irontown made and then shot the poor thing with. And Ashitaka has to kill him to protect his people, but doing so ends up with him getting infected with the demon curse and doomed to also die from it. This conflict between Irontown and industrialization and then the forest on the natural side of the world doesn't end in victory on either side, but both are harmed in a larger battle and disaster when the great forest spirit is contaminated with hatred and decapitated. Again, a really peaceful movie. The forest spirit is almost like a deity within the natural world. They trust that it has a divine plan for everyone, and that there are actually times where it acts in protection of others, such as healing the bullet wounds that Ashitaka gets when he was protecting Princess Mononoke, or her son. But at the end of the movie, Lady Eboshi hunts and kills the forest spirit for some reason to get more money from farming the rest of it's complicated. But anyways, she kills him, lopping off his head in a bid to turn all of the animals to lame cattle and win over the mountain once and for all from the apes and the wolves and the boars. Which actually doesn't happen. She was wrong. Instead, the forest spirit just turns into this huge demon, and they have to cleanse it and return the head to it to save both the animals of the forest and the residents of Irontown. And oh my god, they do, and that's the end of the movie. It's a lot, but still, I really like Princess Mononoke, and it's a great example of an eco-feminist story, and we'll get into the how of that later, but for now, let's focus on a bit of a lighter tale that still retains both environmentalism and feminist values. It's also my Studio Ghibli favorite. On the surface, it seems like a pretty simple story. Mermaid fish girl thing meets this little boy and wants to be his friend, so she turns into a human to go be friends with him. But actually, the world building here is really cool too, especially from the ecological standpoint. There's a similar dichotomy in Ponyo to as Princess Mononoke, but this time it's between the human coastal town where Sosuke and Lisa live, and then the ocean world and the magical depths within it. The human town is just a port town that seems to get most of their businesses from boats and, like, fishing. I don't understand much about boats, clearly, and embarrassingly, because I'm from Florida. But Studio Ghibli doesn't make, like, much of an effort to focus on their boat economy anyways, since this town is, like, shown to be more of a community and a home than anything related to, like, markets and boating. But yeah, a good half of the movie is actually spent in Lisa and Sosuke's physical house, which is very cozy and warm, even when they take in this strange girl that they found on the street in the middle of a magic tsunami. But across the whole world in Ponyo, there's, like, this much more optimistic side to humanity being shown. They're not displacing fish or anything. They're just being nice with mutual aid and good neighborliness, and overall, like, just being kind to each other. It's so nice. And considering, like, Ponyo and Sosuke are, like, 5 at the oldest, it's also very, very necessary for this movie. Sosuke, though, is a great example of all of the optimism in this movie. I love him. He's such a sweet little kid who makes friends with pretty much anyone he comes across, whether it's classmates at school or old ladies at the nursing home his mother works at, or a goldfish girl. And we are clearly shown that this kindness comes from the way his mother raised him to be kind and open-minded above everything else. Additionally, there's not a single human villain in this movie. Actually, there's not really much of a villain at all. Ponyo causes the conflict and, they fix it themselves. But much of the narrative excitement from the film actually comes from the tsunami that Ponyo causes, because only then do we realize how deeply this town relies on the ocean for their livelihood. When the ocean is calm, they fish, transport cargo and passengers, and do whatever else boats do. But then when the ocean is turbulent, either because of Ponyo or her mother the sea goddess, everything halts to a stop. The system, like, clearly works hand in hand with the ocean rather than dominating it, because even despite the pessimism Ponyo's father might have about humans, the ocean world is clearly still thriving. There's plenty of biodiversity and coral reefs, and the water is this beautiful shade of clear blue all throughout. And coming from a girl who grew up in coastal Florida and who has seen many a touristy beach, you can tell it's a healthy ecosystem. Polluted oceans look kind of nasty. Personally, I really enjoy the backdrop of the ocean for an environmentalist movie like this. A lot of the time, these stories focus on the nature within forests or mountains or fields and meadows and whatever like that. It's very Eurocentric. But the ocean is actually usually pretty brushed aside, which is a shame, because Ponyo clearly shows how much potential the ocean has. It's not just a natural backdrop for the movie, but there's also, like, it's also the breeding ground for all of the magical beauty stuff of it too. Like with Ponyo's mother, Grandmamare? Like with Ponyo's mother, she is shown to be the absolute pinnacle of beauty and grace within the movie, and her introduction lulls the story to a halt just to get the audience to focus on how much of a baddie she is, and just that alone. She wields the magic of the ocean quite effortlessly, too, which puts her at the peak of the power hierarchy out of the entire cast. It's very nice to not only see a woman at the top of this, but a mom, too. Even where Ponyo and her father struggle to control the ocean, or the powers that come with it, the ocean bends to her will without her even giving it a second glance. Whatever she says goes, and because she's such, like, this lovely character, usually that entails fixing whatever problems people come to her with. She, like, heals all of the old ladies from the senior home so that they can run and walk again like they're young and not wheelchair bound. And then she also fixes Ponyo's problem. She actually solves the whole Ponyo wanting to be a human thing by just telling her the consequences of that decision, that she'll be a human forever and lose her magic, and then turns her into a human. This sounds kind of like a trans allegory. But anyways, the ocean isn't just made up of Ponyo or her sisters or her parents either. There's these big blue fish that form themselves into waves. And then there's really pretty jellyfish, and there's plenty of other fish and ocean wildlife dotted about the movie. I'd show you, but Studio Ghibli is really strict on copyright, so if YouTube doesn't kill me from all of the big syllable words, they will for showing clips, and I don't blame them. Because it's clear that they put a lot of effort into and it's also clear that they put a lot of effort they put a lot of effort into like preserving the legacy and the integrity of their art, and also the biodiversity in Ponyo. To get back on topic, the liveliness of the ocean, though as a singular entity, is usually directly correlated to Ponyo. When she's asleep, the waters are calm, or when she's like awake or escaping or using her magic, the waters grow turbulent, hence what causes the tsunami in the first place. Like I said, I really love the way Studio Ghibli takes advantage of the ocean environment, but it's not the most detailed ecosystem across all of the movies here. It's probably like number 2. Number 1, though, is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. So, let's talk about that very underrated gem. First of all, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you do so, especially if you already like Princess Mononoke. The 2 movies are very similar, and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, it's a very mouthful of a title. It's not one of my favorite movies on the list, but it's definitely the most important, and the visuals are gorgeous. Again, I'd show you, but like, copyright. Anyways, as for the writing, the big conflict in Nausicaa is between a variety of territories, or groups actually, but the main part of the climate is actually best shown in what they call the toxic jungle. It's very ominous. To put it pretty plainly, though, the toxic jungle was this side effect of, like, human-caused ecocide, like climate change, that was caused centuries, or like millennia even, before this movie takes place. And by now, much of Earth has already been taken over by this jungle, and it's full of toxic spores that kill you within minutes, and are completely populated by these big insects that defend the toxic jungle as their home, even if it means killing the rest of the humans to defend it. Especially if that's what it means. That actually seems to be like a good majority chunk of what they do in the movie. It's progressively taking out more and more land, wiping out villages, towns, and even entire kingdoms. And if they're not destroyed by the jungle and the jungle spores, they're destroyed by the bugs. However, about halfway through the movie, or so, it's actually revealed that the jungle itself isn't toxic at all. The main character, Nausicaa, has this like secret greenhouse where she grows completely safe versions of all of the jungle plants, and the secret behind it is that they grow from clean soil and fresh water. It's actually the contaminated water and the polluted soil that are making the jungle toxic. Basically, it's like the jungle is like a reaction to all of the pollution. It's a fairly believable reaction, honestly. It reminds me a lot of other reactions that the Earth's ecosystems have, like the carbon cycle or stuff like that. The world is self-cleansing, after all. It's not an inherently evil or dangerous territory either. Since the toxicity can be cured and the insects can possibly cooperate with humans, they happen to do so with Nausicaa a lot specifically. There's a lot of nuance within the movie. It's a lot like Princess Mononoke, except with even cooler world building. It reminds me a lot of eco-speculative science fiction from the 70s and 80s, like Ursula K. Le Guin. But the movie isn't just about the toxic jungle. Most of the plot actually revolves around 3 different human kingdoms. There's the Valley of the Wind, where, unsurprisingly, is where Nausicaa is from, if you couldn't tell from the title. And then there's also Tolmekia and Pejite, too. At the start of the film, they're seen as, like, pretty opposing forces, Tolmekia and Pejite. Tolmekia is seen as, like, this brute force kingdom led by a warlord and, like, ready to fight at all times. And then Pejite is the more peaceful but thriving kingdom. And then the Valley is just, like, the smaller territory that minds their own business. These movies have a lot of metaphors for indigenous people, I'm realizing. But, speaking of, let's start with the Valley. It's Nausicaa's home, like I said, but it's the smallest kingdom out of the three, and protected by coastal winds that blow away any toxic spores and have old-growth forests to keep them safe from any attackers. Most of the time. And then this giant warrior, which are like these huge giant warrior things that would cause intense devastation back when they roamed the planet, had an embryo egg thing crash in the valley from a Tolmekian ship. So Tolmekia basically comes and takes over the entire valley to enslave the population and uses it to be the starting ground of the giant warrior's rampage. But they're still, like, nursing it to life. And then Pejite hears about this and then tries to launch a hostile takeover of the hostile takeover, but this time even more hostilely adverb, by taking advantage of the insects and making them attack the valley. It ends up with that old-growth forest completely burning down and getting destroyed. No thanks to either kingdom, they both caused that. And both kingdoms have the same ultimate goal with the giant warrior too. Use it to eradicate the toxic jungle, even though all of the previous attempts to do this through, like, brute force have ended in complete and total disaster. Those bugs do not mess around. They are, like, really intense defenders. And fortunately, the end of the film turns out to be very similar to Princess Mononoke too. Nausicaa successfully stops the kingdoms from launching such a stupid attack and protects the valley from being swarmed by the insects too. They also have this great tie back to the beginning, as Nausicaa is revealed to be the savior that people have been prophesizing about for centuries to bring the end to the Dark Age. It's very cool. And then, at the end, there's this little sapling that sprouts deep underneath the toxic jungle, where the sands have purified the air and the water to be completely, like, cleansed and safe. So, with the happy ending of Nausicaa in the bag, we just have one more movie to go over. But despite that, there's still the same contrasting pair in this movie that there are in most of the others. There's this human town, which is fairly similar to Ponyo, but now a small countryside farming town. There's also not much to say about it, other than the fact that it's clearly, like, a place of healing for the Kusakabe family. They moved there just to help the mother recover from her illness faster, which is also pretty realistic too, since living in the countryside has less air pollution, usually less stress, no noise pollution, and so on and so forth. But within the story, a big reason for the very peaceful environment is because of its proximity to the spirits of the forest. It's to the point where there's some within the houses too, like the Soul Sprites. They are cleansed away though, and sent off to find, like, some other old place to hide in. And then, for the lack of the better term, there's the forest, where the spirits all live, where the spirits like all the Totoros and the Kappas and all of them live. There's a pretty big emphasis on peace within the forest, and above anything else. My Neighbor Totoro is a pretty peaceful movie. I dozed off a little bit when I rewatched it for this video. Yeah. Studio Ghibli is pretty peaceful in general, but the scenes with the forest are specifically made to be very calm. Mei taking a nap on Totoro, when they just stand at the bus stop in silence, and then there's the more exciting scenes where they ride Kappas and grow plants with dancing. It gets crazy. But like I said, it's pretty calm. That scene where Totoro naps with Mei was the one that had me struggling to keep my eyes open specifically. And then one of the best parts about My Neighbor Totoro is that they completely lack a big conflict between nature and humanity like the rest of the movies in this list do. They just exist, parallel to each other. Sometimes they interact, if the forest spirits want. But for most of the part, they each go about their business, and that's it. I think all of this piece is meant to represent. Oh my god! I think all of this piece is meant to like emphasize the optimism in this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if Miyazaki felt like especially connected to the lifestyle they show in My Neighbor Totoro specifically, since like they show it to be sort of like a utopian movie compared to stuff like Princess Mononoke or Nausicaa of the Valley. But yeah, all of these movies, however, do have one thing in common that I've yet to really focus on, even though I keep talking about it, and that's the philosophy behind them that string them all together. So let's finally talk about that. Like I said in the intro, Studio Ghibli movies, both the ones I included here and the rest, are pretty environmentalist and also pretty feminist. There are a lot of video essays out there that talk about both of those facts already, but like in their respective nature. But my perspective, because I'm special. That was sarcasm. I'm not, I promise. Anyways, my perspective argues that the feminism in these movies has a lot more to do with the environmentalist parts than people think. This actually has a name, too. Ecofeminism. It's my new hyperfixation. But what is it, like, specifically? Basically, ecofeminism is a movement that spurred in the 1970s as feminists began including the environment within their conversations of male and capitalist oppression. There are some really good articles that go into depth about this, and for some reason, my school, like when I took classes about this, they only gave me ones written by men, which is weird, and I'm pretty sure they were mostly white guys too, which is doubly weird. But I'm going to link some actually good sources in the description, which are the ones that I used to write this video, so feel free to check them out. Anyways, Studio Ghibli, on the other hand, lets women carry out these conversations within the films 90% of the time, and the other percent is like indigenous people, so most of the characters in all of the movies we've gone over are women, and very well-written women at that, and they do not hesitate to point out the intersectionality between the way the world treats nature and the way the world treats women. One of the biggest ways they do this is also a direct trait of ecofeminism, and it's the argument against value put in hierarchies, especially when women and nature are on a lower tier of importance to capitalist society and the patriarchy. Princess Mononoke and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind are the best examples of this. Both feature stories where women are the main defenders of featured ecosystems, and where the industrial side dehumanizes them and tries crushing them because of it. And, like, even better, neither end up winning this battle, they just come to an equilibrium and, like, peace as they work together, because it'd be weird if they just had nature brutally slaughter humans. But anyways, they both make a brilliant conversation about how misogyny and capitalism go hand in hand, but that is going to have to be saved for part 2. Studio Ghibli's ecofeminism, though, is still quite special. It doesn't just go into how women and nature's mistreatment in the world are similar, but they also go a bit beyond other movies that do the same, like Fern Gully or The Secret Garden. A part of this Ghibli-specific magic can be credited to another ideology within the same sphere as ecofeminism, deep ecology. The main idea behind deep ecology is that humanity is not separate or above nature at all. We are not more powerful, more important, or more valuable than any specific aspect of nature. A person is equal to a squirrel or a pond or a tree or whatever. We are just another part of that network of the environment, like any other bit of nature you can come across. So when you approach like ethics or ideological conversations with this in mind, it usually argues for equal consideration of everything within the environment on the exact same level as consideration that we hold for humans. Which is another big part of these movies. All of the animals in Princess Mononoke are given like specific characters. There's personalities behind them, and it's not just like, oh, the wolf clan or oh, the boar clan. And then in Ponyo, it quite literally submerges the human world into the ocean to show that in the grand scheme of things, we are just all part of the same being in the first place. They just turned her into a really pretty sea goddess that's like 12 feet tall and has really pretty pink hair. But Nausicaa, again, is another example because of how much she defends and argues for both the apparently hostile insects' right to live and also the toxic jungle as a whole. The movie has a really big emphasis on ecospheres rather than just humans and animals, or even just humans and animals and plants, which is very cool. And while deep ecology is often criticized by ecofeminists for failing to address the importance of women in this conversation, these movies dodge that problem entirely. Women are at the forefront of every single one of the movies here, as well as almost all of their movies in general. It's women who are fighting for the environment within them, and it's women who are dealing with the consequences of both their identity and their beliefs, no matter how unfair these consequences may be. Princess Mononoke, Ponyo, My Neighbor Totoro, and Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind all have very beautifully written women that only added to this argument more. But I'm already like a half hour into this. My editor said that she's gonna shank me if I make her like edit a video that's any longer than this. So that conversation is gonna have to be put in a part 2 video, one that I will upload as soon as physically possible. And I think I'm also gonna make a part 3 that just like recaps all of the ecofeminism and the ideologies behind it, because I could have gone into more detail and I had to cut some parts out for the sake of time. So once this whole mini-series is out, I'm also going to upload like a feature film-sized compilation of all of these essays so you can watch the whole thing in long form, because I know that's like technically more preferred. It's just hard to make. Anyways, if the part 2 is already out, you can click on it now. If it's not, just hold still, literally right there. Don't move. For 7 days. Or however long it takes me to make it. Stay. I'm kidding. But thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.